Okay, we're on page 600, and we're starting a new section. It's Siman Kuf Ayin Hey. Amr HaNeshama, says the Neshama, Od Inyan Acher, Echpotz Ladas Mimcha. There's another thing that I would like to know from you. Ve'ulam Einenu Inyan Kol Kach Erech. And it might be that it's not such a long topic for you to explain. V'gam lo min hamavhilin harayon beheder ha'idiyah bo. K'mo ha'inyanim shezacharnu arata, aval hu davar shetavasi la'amr alav u'verer. He says that it might be something that wasn't as confusing as before. If you remember, the Neshama started the book by asking certain things that he felt were very confusing. And he wasn't clear about these aspects of Judaism that are very important. And those are things that we discussed into the book until now, which was things like reward and punishment, or why do bad things happen to good people, and so forth and so on. And about Mashiach, things like that. He was very confused. He says, this topic that he's asking about now, he's not very confused about it, but he still wants to know. He's very curious about it. Amar Seichel responds the intellect, what is this topic? Amar HaNeshama, the Neshama says, Inyan HaNevuah, I would like to know about prophecy. Mahi, what is it? What is its way and what is its purpose? So he wants to know about prophecy. So this wasn't one of the big things that was one of the big faith questions that was bothering him from before, but he would like to know about it. Amar HaSeichel, says the intellect, HaNevuahi Yediyah v'Hasaga she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Noisin l'Navi Mechvodo Yisbarach. Prophecy is an idea, an understanding that Hashem gives to a prophet from His glory. V'amnam Hinei shemata kvar she'amidas mahuso Yisbarach Hu Shleimuso Mashu Lefi Atzmo Ein Nitin Leos Musag Lanu Klal V'lo Yasigu El Mitzad Pu'ulosov Mitzad Amidos Asher Kavel Atzmo L'Hanigas HaOlam U'Kamosh B'Yarnos. It's a very important thing to remember, is that we cannot understand God at all. God's essence, we have absolutely no ability to understand. The only thing we can understand about Hashem are His actions, the way that Hashem interacts with the world. But when it comes to His essence, a human being has no ability to ever understand that. Impossible. So he's giving this as an introduction before we talk about prophecy. So he says, just like a human being, a regular human can, so too a prophet. Right? You think a prophet is a very holy person, so maybe a prophet can understand Hashem's essence. That's not true. Even a prophet cannot understand Hashem's essence. Not only that, even Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to understand Hashem's essence. Remember, he said he wanted to see Hashem's glory, and Hashem just passed in front of him from behind. He was able to see a limited aspects of Hashem, but even Moshe was not able to understand God's essence. So a prophet is not understanding Hashem's essence. But what he can experience, a prophet, is whether Hashem wants to do good, if He's going to punish, merachem, if He's being merciful, shofet, if He's attributing justice, exercising justice, mechaye, bringing to life, reifei, if He is healing, and all the other names that we call Hashem based on His actions. When we mentioned that when we describe Hashem, we're not describing His essence. When we say Hashem's merciful, or Hashem's angry, we're not saying that Hashem's essence at that moment is angry. Hashem is not angry like a person gets angry, but rather He is dealing with the world with anger at that moment. Now, if Hashem wants to show a prophet how He's going to be dealing with the world, He will show the prophet His emanations, how He's dealing with the world in all of their ways. He shows them the emanations which He is going to be using to interact with the world, and everything in the world that happens is based on them. So therefore, when Hashem shows a prophet the certain actions, the certain emanations that He's interacting with the world, the prophet will be able to see the past, the present, and the future. He'll know what's going on. Not that Hashem revealed His essence to the prophet, but that Hashem reveals how He is dealing with the world at that moment, right? If you ask us, how is Hashem dealing with the world? We don't know which emanations Hashem is using at this particular moment, but Hashem will reveal that to a prophet. Kihine, Yasigu Tofes Ba'achas Hamidos. He will show the prophet a specific attribute. V'yasigu kol hatoldos hanolos mizeh b'chlal hanevraim shiyu. once the prophet understands that attribute that Hashem is using, he will understand how that attribute is going to affect all of creation, all of humanity. But Hashem's true essence, a prophet will never understand, will never grasp. And even the attributes that the prophet is understanding, that he is getting that prophecy, even that is not, he doesn't receive in a straightforward way, but in a specific way specialized for prophets, which he's going to explain. Amra Hanashama, says the soul, this is something I would like to know. How is this special way that a prophet receives his messages? So the Seichel here just said that a prophet doesn't receive messages in a straight way, but in a specific way. So what is that specific way? That's what the soul would like to know right now. Amra Seichel, says the intellect. Mikra Malihu, it says it's a verse in the Torah. In the verse in the Tanakh, Ubiyad Hanavim Adame, I will appear in the consciousness of the prophets, like an image. Not that he in created images, not that Hashem has an image, Chas v'shalom. Moshe Rabbeinu olav v'shalom nemar, and it says by Moshe, Umara v'lo b'chidos. To Moshe, Hashem said, I will appear to you in a vision, and not in riddles. Hala acherim, but to others, b'chidos, in riddles. Ubehed Amar, and it says explicitly, b'chalom edaber, I will speak to you in a dream. What he's saying here is that, or one of the principles of faith that the Rambam cites is that the prophecy of Moses was totally different from any other prophet. Moshe spoke to Hashem the way we're speaking now, but to every other prophet, which the Ramchal is saying here also, they would receive visions. They would receive representations that stood for certain ideas, which he's about to explain. Varzal kimu mashe kiblu, and Chazal also, they say, Chalom echad mishishim b'nevuah. A dream is 1/60th of prophecy. And this, Kilo nitin reshus l'navim liros hakavod ha'elyon k'mo shehu. There is no permission for a prophet to see Hashem's glory as it is. Aval hakavod hamizgala aleihem yichadesh b'levavim dimyonis nevuim. Rather, what Hashem does is Hashem makes a shefa, it's an overflowing of His glory to the prophet, and that creates certain images in the prophet's mind. Shiu kemo levushim v'chidos le'inyanim haru'im lahagil l'diyasam. And they are like messages, riddles, or riddles is a bad word, that's not really a great translation, but they're more like images that and outer clothing that stand and represent certain ideas. He's going to explain. Just like every other metaphor in the world. Right? You tell somebody a metaphor. You tell someone the metaphor of the tortoise and the hare. So they get a certain idea of what you're trying to convey, even though we're talking about a turtle and a rabbit. But you're conveying a certain message. He's going to explain. V'amnam, ein derech hasagasam kimoshe masegas hadas hanoshis b'derech hativi. The way that the prophet receives his messages is not the way, is not the natural way that human beings get ideas. It's like Hashem puts an idea in his head, right? Usually when you think about something, you contemplate it, and then you think about it, and you get images in your head. That's not using your intellect. That's not what happens here. I said intellect before, which was really incorrect. Rather, what Hashem does is He puts a spiritual emanation on the prophet, and that causes a certain idea to automatically go into his head, the prophet, go into his, really through his neshama. It's not through the usual intellectual faculties that we have, right? We all have a prefrontal cortex that we can think about ideas and visualize things. That's not how it's happening here. When a prophet gets a message, Hashem is putting a spiritual energy into that prophet, that his soul perceives a message. And he says, once a prophet receives that message, there's no doubt that it was a divine message, right? If someone's not sure if the message came from Hashem or not, then it was not a prophecy. But the Rambam writes, when a person would get a prophecy, his body would because of the spiritual experience, he would be physically tired, because his body would quake and tremble that he was getting this message from Hashem. So a person had no doubt when he was getting a prophecy. It wasn't something that you could be unsure about. Ella yizbar lehem b'lishum safek shaham izgala aleim u'medaber imayim yikvodo yizbarach. They knew that the one speaking to them and giving them the message was Hashem. V'ha mechadesh b'livam hadimyonos, and Hashem created those images in his heart. הנבואים ההם, ואנחנו כבליבם ידיע כמו כן שישיגו פתרון המרה והאחידה וישיגו מה שאודן ברוך הוא רוצה לגאוס להם, and they perceived what Hashem wanted to tell them. There was no doubt about it. Ukidvarim ha'ela kazav Rambam, Perek Zayin Misodei Torah, the Rambam writes similarly in the laws of the fundamentals of Torah, Zelashonam, Hadvarim shemodiim lanavi b'mara ha'nevuah derech mashal modiim lo. The things that Hashem wanted to tell the prophet, he would tell them like as a metaphor. Umiyad yechkak belibo pisron hamashal b'mara ha'nevuah v'yedamahu, and Hashem would imprint in the heart of the prophet what he wanted to tell them. Now he's going to do one more paragraph because he's going to explain now what these examples of these mashalim, examples of these parables. But Mishlei Hamidus and Mishlei Hatoldos. There are parables of his attributes and parables of what comes out of those attributes. Perish. Yesh Mashalim Shebhem Yizdav HaKavod Elyon Al Pi Midaisav U'Polosav V'yesh Mashalim Shem Yimshilu HaPoel Hanifol Mimanu Yizbarach. Sometimes Hashem would give a parable or a metaphor to a prophet of his attributes and his deeds, and some based on the effects that would happen. V'derech Mashal, for example, Kishayirtza Ha'adon Baruch Hu Laharus Kevodo L'Navi Kemo Meitiv V'Merachim. Let's say Hashem wanted to show a prophet that he was being, at that moment, doing goodness to the world and being merciful to the world. What image would he show the prophet? Yizdama lo kazakin. Hashem would appear to the prophet. He would appear to the prophet as an elderly man, as an old man, as a grandfather. As it says, Va'atik Yamin Yosef. It says in Daniel that he appeared like an elderly person. An elderly person we associate with kindness, mercy. Now let's say Hashem wanted to appear to the prophet now again, this is not Hashem himself, obviously, appearing like this. This is Hashem putting the image into a prophet's neshama. Now let's say Hashem wanted to show the prophet might about destroying an enemy, power to destroy an enemy. He would appear like a young man ready for war. Like it says, Nigla al yam kibachar v'nigla al Sinai kezakin. It says that Hashem appeared by the sea like a young man, and on Mount Sinai like an elderly person. Shebachar na'el l'malchama v'zakin na'el liyeshiva. Because a bachar, a young man, is ready for war, and an old man is prepared for sitting. Ach mishlei ha'pa'ulos heim ke'inyin makel shaki d'yirmiyah. Now the metaphors for the actions that Hashem was taking, that's like the almond staff of Jeremiah, which he says here, that had to do with the Jewish people were going to be punished. So Hashem showed him the image of a staff. A staff is used to punish. It's back in the day before it was illegal, but if it's punished with a staff. And almonds, it says, because almonds would they ripen very quickly to show that the punishment was coming very quickly. Basir Hanafuach, Sulam de Yaakov, Megillas Yecheskel, Ephas Zechariah, Umenares Hazav, and he gives other examples of how Hashem's prophecies, how based on what was going to happen, he would give the appearance of different items to show what was going to happen. So the old person for the mercy, and the young person for that they're going to be victorious in battle, or the staff for punishment. Okay, so that's just a little bit of beginning about how prophecy works. Okay.